So we have our invisible thread here, and we're using the black invisible thread as opposed to the clear one. The clear one would be better for a more seamless finish, but we're going to use the black just so that you can see the knots. So this is what we call whipping. It's basically a stitch that's going to go along the seam. You could use needle and thread, but this gives you a bit more of a stronger finish and it's a bit more invisible. So the first thing that we're going to do is you place your head in a very comfortable position in your block, and we're going to go through one hole into the next. You don't want to take too many holes, so you don't want to go in like that and like that. You need to take the holes very close to each other, so next to each other like that. And the first thing that I'm going to do is, so there's my piece of thread. I'm going to take a loop of it, maybe about 3 or 4 inches, just like a return hair. So you've got a loop there. You can see that. And we're going to take one hole into the other. We're going to loop around your hook. And you need to make sure your tension is very tight on this hand here. Then you're going to bring it back through, so you're keeping your tension quite even. And then once you've got it through there, it's like a V. You're going to go over. And as you go over, you are going to twist your hook upwards towards the right, and then it's going to fall through the little hole, and you're going to tighten your knot there. So you've got a knot right in the middle there. You're going to tighten it so you can feel the tension on those 2 knots there. And then when you want to let go of it, you just let go of your left hand and keep pulling until it all goes through. That's your starting knot. So you'll have 2 sides there, 2 sides of your knot, and it's a V. So there's a tiny little knot in the middle. You've got your short end here and your long end here. What we're going to do first is we're going to cut off our short end, cut it about 2 millimeters. So then you've just got your long end. Now this is the start for our threading. So you want to take your next hole next to there, and you're going to wrap it around the hook and keep your left hand up, and then pull it through so you've got a V. Then once you've got your V, this is your right hand, you've got a loop there. You're going to then twist it around, and the same motion under. So if you can see there, you've got like a triangular motion, and then pull it out. So again, through one hole, out the other, and you're going to wrap it around the hook, and always keep your hand aimed upwards, because then it will stop the thread from coming off the hook. And then pull it under and go round and twist it towards your right, and it will just fall through that loop. I'll try and explain that a bit more simple. So go through one hole, out the other. When you go through that hole, because you have a hook on the end, there's a bit of a sharp hook on the end of that needle, so you're going to go through at an angle. You don't want to go through up like that, because it will just get caught on your lace. So through at an angle, and then up, twist it around, hold your hand upwards, and then as you go back through, you want to twist your hook down so that it doesn't fall off, keeping your tension quite tight and firm. And then around and twist, and as you twist, it will fall through that hoop. Give your knot a good amount of tension there, and then pull it out. So as you can see, it's an extremely seamless finish there. If you had a needle, 100% guarantee that that needle would have stretched those holes by now. So again, in, wrap round, pull it through, over, twist to the right, and it will fall through that hoop. tighten, let go. Through one hole, out the other, loop around, hand up, twist your hook downwards to get it through the hole, up again, twist it around and turn your hook upwards towards the right and it will fall through that hoop. Tighten your knot and then let go. Through one hole, twist around, through there, you've got your V, over, under, tighten, let go. So it's really important to have a seam along any closure that you do. You'll notice that any closures that you have, around 3 edges of the closure will be a seam. The reason why we don't do a seam at the front of a closure is because that's where your natural hairline will be. So the seam is really important to stop fraying. If you don't have a seam there, then the amount of stitching that you do on a wig or an integration system or a meshless system, if you don't have a seam, then that closure will erode pretty quickly. The lace will fray and you'll have to replace it pretty quick. So the reason why we do a seam along any sort of little hairpiece or a closure or a wig is for longevity, so that it doesn't fray as quickly and so your client gets longer out of their hairpiece. So now we're going to go on to different types of knots. What you want to do is take your hair. So we've got a long bit of hair here. You only really want to have this much in your hand. And we want to hold it so that there's about 3 or 4 inches of a return hair. These are called your return hairs. And that, if you notice on any closure, you'll have spiky bits. And these are the spiky bits. They're not avoided unless you have a silk closure. But on a lace closure, they can't be avoided. I personally think they add a bit more naturalness to the hair system. So you have your return hair there. You want to create a little loop. So that's your loop. First, we're going to do single knots. So the single knots are good along a hairline or down a parting. The only downside to single knots is they shed really fast. A double knot would be more longevity, but they don't look good along a hairline. So with a single knot, you've got your loop. You're going to put your hook into just one part of the holes. So through one hole, you don't want to put it in and grab lots of holes. So just one hole, and you want to take usually 1 or 2 hairs, hook it on, keep your tension in your left hand, pull it through so you've got your V, and then you're going to go over, and the same motion as the whipping, over, and it's just going to fall through. So you'll see you've got that triangle there. And once you've got that triangle, tighten your knot by pulling your left hand and keeping the tension on your right, and then you just let go and pull. So that's your first single knot. Now that's with 2 hairs. The next one I'm going to do is with 1 hair, so you can see how fine that is. So put your hook through. We're just going to take 1 little hair, pull it through, over, round, through your little hook and out. So you can see the difference between one hair there and 2 hairs there. So usually around a hairline you would do 1 hair and a single knot to make it look more realistic. So through, pull it through, hook it around, twist it to the right, and then tighten. So again, through, hook, pull it through the lace, over, and pull. I'm going to try and do it really slowly here. Hook your hair on, pull it through the other hole of the lace, and you've got your even tension on each side. Put it over. You're going to twist your hook up to the right, and it's going to fall through that loop there. And then tighten and let go. Ready? So again, I'll do it slowly. Hook your hair on. You're going to pull it through. So you've got your even tension. Over to your left. Twist it round. Hook it. And then pull it out. So if you're left-handed, then you would do exactly the same, but the other way round. So instead of, so if you pulled it through, if you're left-handed, you'd obviously, we're doing it to the left there, but you'd do it to the right. Now that's with 3 hairs. So this one up here was 2 hairs, that's 1 hair, and that one's 3 hairs. Pull it through, hook it on, twist, and up. So single knots, are the most popular type of knots. But as I said, they don't last as long. So we would usually only do them down the parting and along the hairline for a more natural look. But if you did the whole closure like this, then it is guaranteed to shed prematurely. So now we're going to do double knots. Now double knots are great for the base of a closure, so anywhere that's not down the parting and not along the hairline. Double knots, from my experience, will last about 2 years. They're quite firm. It's a bit like double knotting a knot, to be honest. It's exactly what it is. It's more of a stronger knot, and it's going to last, you know, your hair system's going to last a lot longer. The reason why we don't do double knots along the hairline or down the parting is because they are a lot more visible. So with a double knot, you would, same technique, put your hook through your lace. I'm going to do it with a single hair. So a single hair, double knot. Hook my hair on, pull it through. Same technique, I'm going to go over, under, tighten, and then I'm going to do that all over again. So you can see now, that's a bigger knot to what they are. Let me do one right next to the single knots so that you can see. So that's a single knot there. We're going to do a double knot right next to it. And take one hair. So you can see the difference. The single knot's a lot smaller, the double knot's a lot bigger. So again, take it through. Most of the time we would do 2 hairs with a double knot, but that obviously will depend on the density that your client wants. If they want it quite thick, then 2 hairs per hole is good. But if they want it quite thin, then 1 hair is enough. This is 2 hairs. And that one was 3 hairs. So you can see here, that one there is 2 hairs, that's 3 hairs, and that's 1 hair. So now we're going to do cross knots. Cross knots are good if you want a free parting. So if you want to be able to free part your client's system, then doing a cross knot is good. The only downside with it is there's no direction. So you won't be able to get an absolute clean parting with it. Whereas if you were doing standard knots, you could knot some going that way and then knot some going that way, where you would get a clean section of hair. With cross knots, we knot them, one layer of them going that way and one layer of them going that way. So when they free part, you get more of an uplift and a bit more volume to it, but there's just no direction to the parting. So first set of cross knots we're going to do going towards the right. Sometimes if you want to wet the hair, you can just have a spray bottle on hand. It'll just give you a bit more of a cleaner finish. Sometimes if you feel like you're not that tight, just give them a little pull and it'll tighten them. So once I've finished a row going that way, I'm then going to turn my head that way, and I'm going to knot the other section going that way. And it's the row just beneath. So I'm then going to turn it back that way. So I've got this section, the first section is going that way. The bottom section here is going that way. So it's almost like creating a V. And then my next section underneath is going to go back that way. So it's almost like you're alternating, a bit like a herringbone technique. So with the motions, you go through and pull it through there, tighten. These are just single knots. It's just the turning of the mannequin. So you've got that one there. And then if I went below it, underneath, it would go the other way. And you'd pull that head that way. And then if you're going to go below again, you'd never do them in this sequence. You'd already finish your row first. So that way, it's a bit like a herringbone technique. You see? Each one on each layer is going a different way. So it's not actually handwork that's making it different. It's the turning of your mannequin. So one way you're going this way. So you're turning it, you're going off to the right. And then if you turn your mannequin that way, you're then going to turn that one off to the left. So that's why we make sure we finish a row first. So we'll do a row of them going to the right like that. And then once we finish that row, we'll turn the mannequin, and then the next row will go to the left, off like that. So that each row is going a different direction, and each row has got a different pattern of it. So that when you do open those rows, there's quite a nice volume to the hair. You see that volume already? It's given a nice bit of volume there already. If it's the herringbone technique, which is the cross knots, you'll be able to part that wherever they like. It will be a free part, because it's those knots, you've got one row of them are going to the right and one row is going to the left. So when they do part it, the hair's quite neutral. So this is hair that I have from a grey donor, and I like to use this hair for ventilating for people who want to have some grey streaks through their hair, or maybe a little bit of grey along the hairline, or down the parting. I like to pick out the silver strands. There are a lot of dark strands in here, which it's very salt and pepper. It's a beautiful colour, but to get a striking contrast against the darker hair, I like to pick out the silver ones. So it's a bit time consuming, but here we go, we've picked out, there are still some darks in there, but I'll try and avoid knotting those. So on this piece, I'm going to be knotting quite a thick grey hairline. And this is good for if you're just adding a little bit of hairline to a closure. So I've fully knotted this closure. It's a 3x5, and I'm gonna go along and just add some grey hairs in there. So that's quite a silver hair there. It's going to be hard for you to see the knot. You can see how that's just gone on. I'll show you on a darker piece so that you can see the contrast. You can see that little grey strand there. This is really good to add a bit of realness to your client's system. And it also doesn't make the system look as fake, because no one would ever guess that someone would have grey hairs added into a hairpiece.